It's your boy, Just Dom, catching the day's latest news. What's going on around the roads? Find out here first at the TCP NewsBreak.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lady L, and I am here with the TCP NewsBreak. I'm going to have a very special news break for you all today with our guests, Ms. Tanae and Ms. Dorothea Brown, who will just be sharing with us some things that maybe you didn't know were happening around our Lancaster County community. So stay tuned, guys. All right, Tanae and Ms. Dorothea, thank you for joining us this morning. How are you?
We're good.
Fine, we're good.
Great.
Awesome. So before we get started on the interview process, can you both just share with us what you do within the Lancaster community?
So now you can go over.
I think everybody knows what I already do. I kind of just call myself a community humanitarian activist within Lancaster City. I try to advocate for residents in being the liaison between them and the local government on them resolving some issues, of if they have a problem contacting someone or, getting their problems resolved. So I try to help, the residents as much as I can.
Awesome. And Ms. Dorothea, can you share a little bit about yourself with our audience as well?
I am part owner of Meet the Browns food truck. So that's what I do, run a family business with myself and two of my brothers.
Awesome. All right. Well, of course, I wish that we were here to talk about the food truck because I'm always hungry. But this morning, that is not what we are here to talk about today. So Ms. Tanae and Mr. Thea, can you guys share with us some things that are going on that you wanted to enlighten our community about?
Well, I'll start just by saying I got a text from her on Thursday morning. And once I read it, it was very disturbing because she's a very close friend of mine. I mean, we've been friends since the 90s. And, initially she thought the incident was with the Lancaster City Police. So, of course, as soon as I read her message, I was on the phone, making calls, wanting answers, to try to understand what happened. So I will let her tell you what occurred at her home that morning.
Okay. September the 10th, about 6:30 a.m., I hear a banging on my front door. Actually sounds like a kicking. I wake up, it's just banging on my front door. I immediately grab my firearm. I am a single woman. I've resided here for 5 years, plus by myself. So as I'm approaching my front door, I hear police, open the door or we're gonna kick it in. I peek out my peephole because anybody can say they're the police. I need to see who's on the other side of my door. On the other side of my door, I observe men in like full tactical gear, plastic shields covering their body, big assault rifles. I'm standing behind my door, just me, terrified. And I ask them, how can I help you? What do you want? All I hear is open the door, ma'am, before we kick your door in. So I obliged. I didn't know what else to do. It's open season on color, folks. Nowadays, I'm a single woman and I'm standing here with a firearm. I place my firearm on the floor. I open my door far enough for them to just talk to me. Tell me what you want. Who are you looking for? It's everyone screaming. It's 4 people there. It's 3 men with assault rifles and another little guy with papers in his hands. I get, step aside, ma'am, and the taller one just pushes my door open and 3 people run into my apartment and I'm moved into the hallway. I'm asked to step into the hallway. In the hallway, I'm asking them what do they want. The officer that I later found out was from the Lancaster County Sheriff's Department. He tells me that they are looking for an individual by Nelson Cologne. I don't know him. I proceed to tell him, let me see the papers. They don't let me see the papers, but he does show me the picture of the person. I don't know this person. I explained to him, I've never seen this person. I've resided here for 5 years. You know, he asked me, is anyone else in the building? I tell them, older gentleman downstairs, young man upstairs with children, older lady on the side. You know, there is another apartment building next to me that sometimes people have mistaken my building looking for someone over there. Once they run through my apartment, they're standing in the doorway. They radio, everything's all clear. And it's basically sorry for any inconvenience. It could have been handled differently.
They noticed you.
Yeah. So.
Oh yes, they did. No, I apologize. I put my gun on the floor in the hallway. One of the officers either stepped back on it or I don't know. Someone noticed my gun on the floor. This is after they ran through my whole apartment. Proceeded to pick up my gun. I heard someone say, "Oh, it's a firearm." Picked up my firearm. At that point, I'm on the outside of my door. My door is half ajar. Someone's holding it open. I did say, that is mine. I hear, ma'am, is this your firearm? Yes, it is. I'm a licensed carrier. I'm registered. It's mine. They take my gun apart. You know, they take the magazine out, check the barrel, I guess, to see if it was fired. They later told me that they ran my firearm, which, okay, that's your job, I guess. I guess they were doing their job. I proceeded to tell the officer that this could have been handled differently. You didn't have to do, I told them, you scared the fuck out of me. I'm gonna be honest, you scared the fuck out of me. You did not have to do this the way it was done. All you had to do was knock on my door. I would have told you I don't know that man, and I would have gladly allowed them to come in and look through my apartment. They didn't have to point big guns. It didn't have to be done the way it was done. It was unnecessary. Then they proceed to leave my apartment and go next door to my neighbor's apartment, who is a single woman who resides there with her children. And I heard them at 6:36 banging on this lady's door. I invited her to be over here today so she can tell her side of the story and what happened over there. But that lady's distraught. You know, she's upset. You got a 6-7-year-old child that she's telling me they're standing there putting guns at her child, shaking when her child is walking out of the bedroom. I just think it should have been handled differently. You know, I contacted the mayor's office. I contacted Smucker's office. The Lancaster County Sheriff Department I spoke with. He gave me some insight on why the U.S. Marshals, because that's who these people were, who ran up in my home, would have acted like this. But there's many different ways it could have been handled. I checked with my landlord. He said he was never contacted to ask who leased this apartment from him, who's been here. No mail or anything was checked. It just could have been handled differently. And as you can see, I'm still distraught by something that happened to me on Thursday. I've resided here for 5 years. I've only been scared 2 times. The very first night I moved in here in September the 10th, when this happened to me, there's so many ways that this could have just went wrong in so many ways. But had they just knocked on my door and asked me, I would have gladly allowed them to just come in and look around my place. It didn't have to go down the way it did.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that that's really what a lot of people are out here suggesting. These instances and these occurrences where the police are, you know, welcoming themselves into our homes, not really displaying a warrant, not telling us what for, what's going on. And a lot of these things can be avoided with just 5 simple questions. Do you live here? Who are you?
Exactly.
You know, and you don't have to traumatize an entire apartment building or an entire community of folks to do it.
Oh, I'm definitely traumatized. I'm definitely traumatized.
Yeah, and
I had to go to my doctor to get medication. Like I couldn't. I had to work the next day. My whole day was thrown off. You know, like my coworker has to carry me as a team because my mind's not right. I can't concentrate. Like I don't feel safe here. These are people who are supposed to protect us, and to just act like that. There were people outside of my building, behind my building, in front of my building. If in fact that man actually resided here, I really think they would have got him if they're surrounding my building. All they had to do was just knock. And that's what I told the officer. All you had to do was just knock at my door. You didn't have to do this the way that you did it.
Right? Yeah, so as soon as I got her text, obviously I came over and well, before I even got over, like I said, I contacted the mayor's office, and Bernie from her office did call me back and informed me that it was the sheriff's office. So, which I know then is county. So then I contacted the county commissioner, Greg Lehman, and he informed me of the commissioner's power and that they really don't have any power over the sheriff's office beyond their budget. So I was like, so you mean to tell me the sheriff's office is like this whole separate entity that if I had a complaint about the sheriff, who do I go to? And he said, there's nobody to go to because they would have been the first law enforcement when the city was established. So that was information to me that I did not know. So we contacted the sheriff's office, as she stated. I was here with her when we made all these phone calls. And they gave us to the officer that was here at the time of the incident. And we then asked him for the U.S. Marshal's information. Now, me also knowing about our representatives in our area, I told her we need to call Lloyd Smucker's office since he is our U.S. representative that deals with federal issues. Now, he did contact her back the next day.
I have a website that he told me I can go and file a complaint against the marshals. So I have yet to even call the 1-800 number to talk to the U.S. Marshals. I was waiting for Smucker to get back, and then they gave me a website. So I will be following up on that.
Yeah, but my main concern was, as soon as I read her message, was this could have been a Breonna Taylor situation, especially because she is a concealed carry gun owner. You know what I mean? If she would have not thought to put her gun down and would have kept the gun in her hand, we don't know how they would have reacted, especially because we don't know the magnitude of the man that they were looking for, even what he had done, that they even did this type of thing.
He's not on none of their websites. He's not on a U.S. Marshal wanted list.
The 15 most wanted. Yeah,
no, he's not on there. But they ran up in my house like they were looking for a murderer or something.
Right. And then my other concern is, you know, I just can't believe we can see on the moon, you know what I mean? And other things. Like, there was no way for you to actually have just staked out this place that, well, since they went next door, to even staked out the street to see whether this man has resided here. I mean, I know from the time that she's lived here, that man hasn't, because there's 3 apartments in her complex. He's resided in none of them. You know, so even if she had, like I said, she's a concealed carry person, you didn't even do your due diligence to find out about the person who did reside here. Okay, to even know that she had a firearm. Because here's the thing, if she had been a true criminal element type person, she could have had that gun on her, and when they pushed their way in with their riot gear, she could have shot them all from behind. Because they were so worried about who they were looking for that they never stopped to think about the person who did reside there. So they even put themselves in harm's way. You know what I mean? They're just lucky they got a person who was, you know, an upstanding resident and someone who was not. Because if she had something to hide, she might have been able to shoot them all. You know what I mean? And they never think about stuff like that. You know what I mean? They're so worried about just getting what they're there for. You know what I mean? So my main thing was to come over here to console my friend, to get her answers. And, you know, and as soon as I heard about this, I was like, this is definitely Breonna Taylor in Lancaster. It could have been So I needed her story to be heard. And my first was TCP, you know what I mean? To bring this story out.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the thing is that people of color, we have these stories. And if we ourselves don't have them, we have a friend who's had these stories. The police, showing up at their door because they heard something or they thought something or they believed something. And they go into a mode of attack. And it's like all concern for human life goes out the window. You've been living in this building for 5 years. You're trying to tell me over the course of 5 years, they don't have no new information. They still think that this guy is at this residence. And then when they saw that they were wrong with you, they said, oh, well, they doubled down and said, instead of admitting that they were at the wrong place, they just said, oh, it must just be a different building, a different house number. And then they just go and traumatize your neighbors.
Yes, my neighbor's traumatized too.
And then to find out that you called the county commissioner because we're told, follow up, it'll be okay. We're here for you. So you guys follow up with the county commissioner and they pretty much say, oh, the sheriff department's the most powerful place in town. There's nothing we can do about it. That's unacceptable.
I mean, I will say, he did offer questions, that we should probably ask once we do get to the marshals of, how they got their information. So he was helpful in a sense. He just explained to me that unfortunately there was nothing he could do. But he was, like I said, also, and they didn't have to do this. When we contacted the mayor's office, they actually had Chief Berkey Heiser call Dorothea personally and explain to him that it was none of his officers that did come to her residence. And he didn't have to do that.
And he's the one who gave me the information of who to contact at the sheriff's department. And then I spoke to the sheriff who was here that morning. And then he went into some type of explanations on why the marshals would have done what they did, saying that it could have possibly been an address that the man used many, many years ago, but I've been here for that long. All they had to do was contact my landlord. I spoke to my landlord. He said no one contacted him about coming into any of his buildings, about who resided there, who he leased to, or anything. My landlord apologized for the inconvenience, but until someone puts big assault rifles in your face and just pushes their way in, no one will ever know how I feel. No one will ever know how I feel at all.
Yeah, especially because our homes are supposed to be a place of solitude and comfort. And to feel like, you know what, if the police do something wrong, they're likely to come up in my house and, just be like, oh, sorry.
Exactly. These are the people who are supposed to protect us. We're supposed to, and with everything going on in the world right now, it's open season on Black people, on minorities in general. People are getting killed by law enforcement and they're getting away with it. And then they're supposed to protect us, but we can't even protect ourselves against them.
Right.
In fear for our lives. So it's kind of like, I feel like I'm at a loss. So what? I have to go take meds. I have PTSD because I darn sure got PTSD from this. Trust and believe.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
While those officers go on about their lives and where's the accountability for going to the wrong place? Where's the accountability for traumatizing citizens? And then it sounds like it was put on you as the victim to figure out what went wrong. Like, it wasn't our people, it was somebody else's people. It doesn't matter whose people they were all law enforcement. Why can't you tell me something more?
Correct.
Like, you telling me to call another number? You telling me to call somebody else? This is your county. This is your jurisdiction. Where'd they get the information? Who told them it was okay to come here? And why weren't you guys there to make sure that your citizens, your residents of the county were to remain safe while they look for this criminal?
Exactly. And that's the questions that we want answered. Like, where did you get this intel from about this
Correct.
person? Like this, it makes no sense, that this information was incorrect. Like I said, I know just from her living here, that person has never rented here, never even probably resided in the building with anyone who has lived here.
According to my landlord, no.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would love to know where they got this information from, because I mean, in Breonna Taylor's situation, obviously it was an ex, you know what I mean? So at one point he may have resided there, but in this case, this was an older Hispanic male. She had no idea who he was or anything, and like I said, just the fact that she had, she's a licensed carrier, it could have went so wrong.
Right.
And that was my fear when I read her text. That infuriated me the most, because that when I called the mayor's office, that's what I said. I was like, this could have been like a Breonna Taylor sister. Like, I mean, I was like going off on the phone, because I was so concerned for her and that this would happen, to her, knowing that she's, a single woman residing here by herself. So I immediately came over and spent the whole day with her to make sure that she was okay. And I definitely, like I said, was like, I think this is, well, she actually said her brother said it's newsworthy. And I was like, oh, well, if we're going to make it newsworthy, we're going to do it with TCP.
Awesome.
Because there are people.
Right. I think for us, we need to figure out what can we do as a community for next steps. How can we make sure that random officers aren't allowed to just come into our community who don't know our community and start doing these searches and everything like that? Like, where's the support from local law enforcement just to make sure that you are abiding by our county rules and making sure that the people who live here aren't going to be harmed?
Maybe if local law enforcement was notified, they would have been able to contact my landlord and my landlord would have told them, hey, Dorothea's resided here for 5+ years, my big thing was, it was just police. Open the door or we're going to kick your door in. We're going to kick your door in. You never said if you were Lancaster County Sheriff, U.S. Marshal. I live in Lancaster County, so I assumed it was Lancaster County Police, Lancaster City Police. Had I not made the phone calls to the mayor's office, and Bernie, I talked to her, called me back. Had I not called Tanae, text Tanae, and we made the phone calls, I would have never known it was U.S. Marshals. They never identified themselves. That never. Even the sheriff did not identify himself. If I wouldn't have asked to see that paperwork, they probably would have never showed it to me.
Yes.
And to enter someone's home, you need to show, like, why are you here?
Right.
Like, I know my rights too. You just ran up in my crib.
Right. And as citizens, we're stuck with, oh, it's okay, you'll be fine. Like, no, this is unacceptable. And these are the policies and practices that people are talking about. Just basic stuff. Like, you could have called the landlord and could have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars on gear, on personnel, on traveling, on all of those things with a simple 10-minute phone call.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely.
Exactly. And could have avoided me being traumatized, because if someone knocks at your door at 6:30 in the morning, at that time in the morning, I'm already going to think it's an emergency because you've come to my home at 6:30 in the morning. Had they just knocked on the door, like I told him, all you had to do was knock on my door. I would have let you look around if you needed to. You didn't have to do all this. You guys did not have to do it.
Instead of barging in and assuming that they were in the correct place and they were wrong all the way around.
And then barged in the apartment building next door also.
And still wrong.
Barged in 2 places and you were still wrong.
Right. And you barged in on 2 single women.
Yep.
And none of your investigations showed that?
Exactly.
It's not. Guess
Yeah.
not.
I appreciate,
Unbelievable.
I appreciate that that you guys are friends and that Dorothea had somebody to call, to text, and to kind of share that with. Because these stories are scary, and they're not necessarily stories that people want to hear. They're not stories that our friends can carry the burden with us on. So I think that's awesome that, you know, Dorothea has somebody that she's like, oh my goodness, this just happened. You know, I need somebody to talk to share this with. I think that's fantastic. I think it's even more something that's awesome is that Tanae, with your connections in the city, that, you know, you guys were able to make some phone calls and take ownership of the situation and not allow Dorothea to just be a victim, but say, no, we're going to figure out who did this, why they did it, where you guys are coming from, and pretty much doing the job that the police should have done before they knocked on the door.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, exactly.
Well, the marshals.
Yeah,
The marshals.
They're marshals, because the chief of police did say they were not his men. They're marshals, and they have to be accompanied by Lancaster County Sheriff.
Yeah.
So
But when they knocked on the door, they said that they were police.
They said police. They did not. I wouldn't have known they were marshals had it not come from all the phone calls that we made to figure it out. They just said police.
Right. So then have you looking for the wrong people? Just like they
Sure
were looking
did.
in the wrong place.
Sure did.
And you don't understand, like literally, like I said, when I got that text, I called the mayor's office first. Then I was calling the president of the city council. Then I was calling the head of neighborhood engagement. They must have been on the same call together because they're texting me. Then I'm sending them her text, which she texts me, because I'm getting somebody's answering my damn questions. Like that's how I felt. You know what I mean? But like I said, as soon as Bernie called me back and told me that it was the sheriff's, then I went to the county commissioner. You know, I do appreciate the city, the mayor's office, Bernie, you know, even, you know, Izzy responding to me and Millsy responding to me, Chief Berkeyheiser giving her a call personally and letting her know it wasn't his men. So I do appreciate all those levels that we reached out to. And I mean, they responded like quickly, like it wasn't a big delay in response either. So I do want to say that that was very well appreciated. It's this then when we got to the sheriff's department where then you could see the resistance come in. He did, though, at the end apologize.
He apologized here too.
Say sorry. But of course, that doesn't negate the trauma that she endured.
I'm left with.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The trauma, you know, and then if she has visitors and they knock on her door or whatever the case may be, I would love if you women could keep us posted on what you find in your investigation. You know, where were these U.S. Marshals from? What were they looking for? And why? And how old was their intel?
Right, exactly. That's what we really ultimately want to know is like, where did you get this information from? Yeah, because you know it. Like I said, you traumatized her and her neighbor, so like you really had some poor information. And I mean, I've watched. There was a TV show called Hunted. I don't know if anyone saw it, but I watched it because one of our graduates from JPM was a part of it. And the information that they show that they can get on people to find people, like it just doesn't make any sense. Now, the sheriff did tell us that because of where we reside, the U.S. Marshals are in Philadelphia. We're a part of the Eastern District. So they would have came out of that office. So that's the one thing that he did tell us. So we're in the Eastern District.
Still working on information, trying to track it down.
Right.
Because I'm going to track it down.
Yeah. It
Just
sounds
for
like
peace of mind.
There's some sleuthing going on that you ladies are going to be digging into.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
Again, thank you guys for sharing this with us. I think it's something that it's a conversation that we need to have in our community. I do think it's awesome that our administration is welcoming, they're forthcoming. They're people that we can literally reach out to and talk to. But all of these administrations need to be working together to make sure that citizens are safe. We can't have our city working well, but then there's people coming from outside of our city having impact in our community.
Exactly, on our residents. Yeah,
Right.
it's not right. And you know, and I just kind of want to correlate the two, just because I saw what happened in Coatesville. You know, same, you know, I mean, she had the U.S. Marshals, but, you know, he had the police barge into his house, because I saw the video. This just barreling in people's residence, it has to stop. It has to stop. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you're terrifying people, you're leaving them, you know, with this trauma. Then, you know, when we all know that, you know, simply just knocking on someone's door and, you know, just being a little bit cordial and respectful, you know, may get you the same result. You know what I mean? If the person is not showing resistance, there shouldn't be a need for all of this.
And thank you for joining us. Guys, this was our news break with Ms. Tanae Darby and Mr. Thea Brown. Just again, talking about what's happening in our community. We'll have them back on the show to kind of give us an update on how Mr. Thea and her neighbor is doing, as well as how's it going and why were the U.S. Marshals really there? So guys, stay tuned for the rest of the TCP Morning News Team.